Underachievement in gifted students, contributing factors, prevention, and intervention. Ream, 2003, likened gifted underachievement to a syndrome that continues in epidemic proportions. I have seen a number of gifted students contract the underachievement syndrome throughout the years. I have worked with their frustrated classroom teachers and listened to their despairing parents. I have collaborated with RTI teams to plan and implement interventions in attempts to reverse their underachievement. I've seen students make a full recovery from the underachievement syndrome, and I've seen others succumb to it. I chose to research the topic of gifted underachievement because I wanted to have a better understanding of the factors that contribute to underachievement in gifted students, how to prevent it if possible, and successful interventions for reversing it if necessary. When we talk about gifted underachievement, we're referring to a discrepancy between a student's expected achievement and his or her actual achievement, which is not attributable to a diagnosed learning disability. It's been estimated that 15 to 40% of identified gifted students are performing well below their academic potential. However, the actual percentage of gifted underachievers could be considerably higher when we consider that high-ability students who underachieve or who are perceived as lacking motivation are at risk for being overlooked in the gifted identification process and may never be identified in the first place. One important thing to note is that gifted underachievement may look different from traditional underachievement in that many gifted underachievers are not failing. In fact, many still perform at high levels. However, they may not be performing at a level commensurate with their high ability. Choice and Walker cautioned that gifted students who get straight A's may be the students who are learning the least. When looking at student potential compared to actual achievement, gifted students may be the biggest underachievers in the class. Left unchecked, gifted underachievement can have devastating consequences. Chronic underachievers are more likely to drop out of school and less likely to attend and complete college. And gifted children who are considered to have high ability and fail to achieve can be expected to struggle with adjustment and motivation and an eventual loss of ability. Many researchers have commented on the impact gifted underachievement could have on society. Jung, 2014, went so far as to say that gifted underachievement is a problem for the same reason that unemployment is. Gifted underachievement entails wasted resources. As educators of the gifted, it is imperative to recognize the risk factors of gifted underachievement so that it can be prevented or treated if necessary. First, I'll discuss the factors that contribute to gifted underachievement. We'll look at characteristics of giftedness as they relate to underachievement, conventional and selective consuming underachievers, motivation, and insufficient challenge. First, it is important to note that several of the unique characteristics involved in giftedness put gifted students at a particular risk for underachievement. The high intellectual ability, sensitivity, negative perfectionism, and social isolation experienced by many gifted students are risk factors for social-emotional difficulties and underachievement. Gifted students are also at risk of both internalizing and externalizing problems, including depression, anxiety, anger, failure avoidance behavior, and low self-esteem, which directly relate to underachievement. In addition to the risk factors inherent in their giftedness, gifted students are exposed to educational experiences, such as being identified as gifted, facing higher expectations from parents and teachers, experiencing an unchallenging school day, and experiencing acceleration that typical students are not exposed to, which results in a different set of contributing factors for gifted underachievement. Finding the term underachiever too broad, Delisle suggested that there are two different types of gifted underachievers: conventional underachievers and selective consuming underachievers. Conventional underachievers are insecure about their ability to do well, and therefore they're cautious about attempting challenge. They are self-deprecating and self-critical, and due to these maladaptive beliefs, conventional underachievers are at risk not only academically, but also psychologically. Unlike conventional underachievers, selective consuming underachievers know they are smart. These students enjoy learning. However, they will only participate in schoolwork they find interesting. They often have definite learning style preferences. Selective consumers will not play the game of school for the sake of earning high grades. These students are not teacher pleasers. Students in this category are at risk academically, but not psychologically, as they have a high academic self-perception. Motivation is often cited as a factor that determines achievement or underachievement. Olszewski, Kubelis, Subotnick, and Worrell stated, "Motivation should be viewed as one of a number of essential psychosocial skills that are critical for talent development. As such, motivation is not a fixed trait that some individuals possess, but a malleable, acquired characteristic that changes over time and can be actively cultivated." It is important to keep this malleability in mind and recognize that we may be able to foster motivation in our students. This is very promising. Siegel and McCoach developed the Achievement Orientation Model, or the AOM, to describe the relationship between beliefs and values that motivate gifted students to engage and achieve. In the model, self-perceptions in 3 areas, self-efficacy, goal valuation or meaningfulness, and environmental perceptions, regulate gifted students' motivation. A student must have a positive attitude in all 3 areas to feel the motivation to self-regulate. In the ideal situation, the student has a positive attitude in all 3 areas, is motivated to self-regulate, and then ultimately achieves. Another theory of student underachievement looks at motivation in a different way, suggesting that it is not a lack of motivation that leads to underachievement, but rather what the student is motivated by. In their self-worth theory of achievement motivation, Covington and Beery propose that some gifted students are overly motivated to maintain and protect their sense of self-worth by avoiding failure. These students' sense of self-worth is highly contingent on their gifted label. They believe that continued academic success is necessary to maintain that label, and that if they try and fail, the label will be lost. Therefore, they avoid any situation that might involve failure. The lack of challenge that gifted students experience throughout their school careers is the most cited contributing factor in their later underachievement. In order to explain how lack of challenge can adversely affect gifted students and lead to underachievement, Snyder and Linenbrink-Garcia proposed 2 pathways that could potentially result in underachievement in gifted students: the maladaptive competence beliefs pathway and the declining value beliefs pathway. Both pathways start with the premise that gifted students are insufficiently challenged in their early years. The students have differing reactions to being or not being identified as gifted and develop a set of beliefs that set the stage for later underachievement. Early insufficient challenge and identification as gifted lead students on this pathway to develop maladaptive competence-related beliefs. They hold an entity belief of intelligence, wherein intelligence is fixed and unchangeable. You're either born with it or you're not. They attach a deep personal importance to the gifted label and achieving academically. They develop a sense of self-worth that is highly contingent on giftedness, and may feel that they are worthy only as long as they are gifted, earning high grades, or succeeding. When academic challenge increases, students on this pathway react with maladaptive coping mechanisms, such as self-handicapping, in order to protect their worth. Self-handicapping is intentionally creating an obstacle or sabotage to provide an excuse for potential failure so that the failure can be attributed to the handicap rather than to low ability. Self-handicapping may be claimed, wherein a student gives excuses, truthful or not, for poor performance, or behavioral, when a student creates an actual obstacle or engages in behaviors to hinder performance. Students on this pathway experience a high effective cost that causes them to disengage. Failure is perceived as too scary because it will diminish self-worth. In an effort to protect self-worth, the student disengages, and underachievement is the likely result. Like the student on the maladaptive competence beliefs pathway, the student on the declining value beliefs pathway is insufficiently challenged early in her academic career. She may or may not be identified as gifted. If she is identified as gifted, she does not hold entity beliefs, nor does she overvalue her gifted label, and therefore she does not enjoy unchallenging work that allows her to avoid failure. Placed in a school with insufficient academic challenge and saddled with frequent busy work that she does not value or see as relevant, causes her to develop low-value beliefs for academic work. Following this initial lack of challenge and subsequent development of low-value beliefs, the student on the declining value beliefs pathway has two possible routes to underachievement. The first route involves increased challenge. As challenge increases and the tasks, which the student does not find valuable, take more and more time and effort, the student withdraws and underachieves. A decline in academic challenge is the alternate route to underachievement for students in this pathway. Research by Eccles et al. Suggests that many students experience decreased challenge in middle school, where tasks become easier and often involve review of content that has already been learned. Students in this pathway react negatively to the insufficient challenge. They become bored, disengaged, and eventually underachieve. Now that we've identified some contributing factors of gifted underachievement, we will look at ways that we can prevent gifted underachievement. Early identification, promoting a growth mindset, and providing challenging curriculum are some of the ways to prevent underachievement in gifted students. The most effective prevention is early identification and placement in appropriate programming. Research suggests that while placement in special programs for the gifted may not be able to prevent all of the factors that can lead to gifted underachievement, they can and probably do help address some of them. Early identification may be especially effective at preventing underachievement if the identification process is as thorough as the inclusive gifted identification and progression model proposed by Welsh and Brown. In this model, the identification process would begin with observation of characteristics associated with giftedness, as well as characteristics common among gifted underachievers, such as psychosomatic and psychological symptoms, including stomach aches, headaches, depression, mental confusion, self-harm, poor self-esteem, sleep disorders, nightmares, and eczema caused by stress, becoming easily frustrated, being introverted, or having perfectionistic tendencies. Following this initial observation, students would undergo ability assessments, an assessment for twice exceptionality. Once a student is identified as gifted, the information gleaned from observations and assessments could be used to design programming to meet the student's needs and provide supports such as social skills training or educational remediation as necessary. Entity-focused messages about giftedness result in greater self-handicapping after students experienced failure, and non-contingent success feedback has similar results. Dweck suggests thinking carefully about how we talk to students about their giftedness. It is important to help students see their talents and abilities as dynamic and malleable. Providing contingent feedback can help students make the connection between effort and academic success. It promotes a growth mindset, and it could prevent the development of maladaptive behaviors, such as contingent self-worth, that can lead to underachievement. The lack of challenge that gifted students experience throughout their school career is often cited as a contributing factor to later underachievement. Therefore, it stands to reason that providing gifted students with adequate challenge may help to prevent underachievement. On the issue of appropriate challenge, Snyder et al. Cautioned, Academic challenge is also subjective, and gifted students may be able to select academic courses or tasks that appear challenging to outsiders but are sufficiently easy to ensure academic success. Truly knowing our students and assessing their needs and abilities is imperative. Early entry may be one option for ensuring that gifted students experience appropriately challenging curriculum, escape the boredom of repetition of material that they have already learned, and avoid disengagement with school. In school districts where this is not an option, early identification and differentiation are key. Teachers need to be masters of their content area and be able to make interdisciplinary connections that help students see the meaning of content they are learning and value their classroom experiences. Getting to know students and their interests and goals can help teachers design differentiated learning experiences that are relevant to students. Teachers can also allow students more control and independence and provide time to focus on authentic explorations and products. When prevention is not possible, intervention strategies may prove successful in reversing underachievement in gifted students. In order to plan effective interventions for gifted underachievers, it is essential to know as much as possible about the reasons for the underachievement. As the contributing factors for students' underachievement vary widely, so must our interventions in order for them to be effective. Some underachieving students crave academic challenge. They are frustrated by attending classes where they are bored every day. An increase in academic challenge could help these students foster intrinsic and attainment value and result in re-engagement and prevention of underachievement. Acceleration, differentiated curricular experiences, and homogeneous ability grouping may be appropriate strategies for increasing challenge for underachieving gifted students. Again, it is important to know your students. Increasing challenge may be appropriate for selective consuming underachievers and students on the declining value beliefs pathway. However, students on the maladaptive competence beliefs pathway and students with a self-worth motivation may view challenge and potential failure as threatening rather than motivating. These students may need scaffolding before it will be productive to provide them with more challenge. Understanding individual learning styles and preferences is critical to dealing with underachievement. Discussing students' interests, values, and future plans can help the teacher tie students' interests to the curriculum and help students understand how the current schoolwork is useful now or will be in the future. Providing choice is also powerful. Independent learning with minimal structure and self-selected assignments has been shown to promote commitment and creativity in gifted underachievers. The role of caring, supportive adults in the reversal of underachievement of gifted students cannot be overemphasized. For their study on underachievement interventions for gifted students, Rubenstein et al. Selected gifted students whose weekly grades ranged from C's to F's. The permission form that was completed for inclusion in the study explained that the students would be observed in class, that their grades would be monitored, and that they would meet with a researcher to complete an intervention. The permission form also explained that the purpose of the study was to help students with strong academic potential. At the end of the first week of the study, the students' grades had improved from C's and F's to A's and B's. The researchers hypothesized that just having the permission form signed, realizing that their academic potential was recognized, and knowing that adults cared about them may have caused the turnaround in the students' performance. Sadly, the researchers also found that after the intervention was removed, the students' grades plummeted, suggesting the positive effect of a strong support system and the potential dangers of removing supports too early. Oberkreiser and Stoger recommended that pull-out programs with their smaller group size and focus on gifted students alone might increase the outcome of interventions, particularly when frequent individual feedback is provided by an adult. Al Bailey also suggests that underachieving gifted students are motivated by positive feedback. Clearly, recognizing gifted students' potential and ensuring that they feel cared about is critical. Gifted underachievement has been likened to a syndrome that is reaching epidemic proportions. In order to prevent its spread, it is crucial that educators recognize its risk factors, take precautions to prevent it, and implement interventions to reverse it if necessary, in order to help gifted students to live their best, self-actualized life.